What if the most stable currency ever created wasn't minted in a government building but grew in a field? We're looking at 10 plants that once traded hands the way cash does now. And when you understand the actual biology behind why each one worked, the logic is hard to argue with. Uniform weight, long shelf life, high demand, impossible to fake. These weren't random choices. Cultures on opposite sides of the planet independently landed on some of the same plants, and that overlap tells you something worth understanding. Number 1, cacao, cocoa beans. Aztec soldiers weren't paid in gold. They were paid in beans, and the logic behind that choice is more sound than most modern economists would like to admit. Cacao beans circulated through Mesoamerica as a medium of exchange for centuries before Spanish contact. And the reason they worked so well comes down to something very specific about the plant itself. Theobroma cacao doesn't grow just anywhere. It needs shade, humidity, and a narrow tropical band, so you couldn't flood the market with beans the way you could with maize. Supply stayed tight and value stayed predictable. Counterfeiters filled empty shells with dirt or clay, which tells you the beans were worth faking. Each bean dried to a consistent density because they all come from the same pod structure, giving traders a reliable unit without any minting process. A turkey cost around 100 beans. A laborer's daily wage got documented in cacao. The Aztec state accepted cacao as tax payment, and when a government takes something for debts, that commodity has crossed into actual currency. The Spanish found warehouses full of beans and called it primitive. What they were actually looking at was a commodity-backed monetary system that geography had been protecting for generations. Number 2, tobacco. In 1619, Virginia's colonial assembly set the price of tobacco by law, not suggested it. Set it. That's the moment Nicotiana tabacum stopped being a crop and became a monetary instrument backed by state authority. John Rolfe had sourced a Spanish variety with a smoother leaf than the local strains, and England developed a taste for it fast. Too fast. Everyone started growing it, including in kitchen gardens. So supply swelled and the value crashed. That's inflation, same as printing too much paper money. The colonial response was to build an inspection system. By 1730, every hogshead going to market needed 2 inspectors to approve it. Inferior leaves got burned, and the rest received a tobacco note. A paper receipt representing graded tobacco in a specific warehouse, which then circulated as legal tender. Number 3, tea bricks. For most of recorded history across Central Asia, Siberia, and Mongolia, you didn't carry coins on a long trade route. You carried bricks, compressed tea bricks, and the reason they worked as money makes perfect sense once you understand the conditions traders dealt with daily. Coins are heavy, can be shaved or debased, and have no use once you're 3 weeks from the nearest market. Camellia sinensis leaves, pressed into uniform blocks, solved that problem directly. You could drink the brick, use it medicinally, or break a corner off for small change. The tannins in the leaves resisted mold during transport, so the brick arrived at its destination worth exactly what it left with. Number 4, pepper, black peppercorns. When the Visigoths besieged Rome in 408 AD, the ransom they demanded included 3,000 pounds of black pepper alongside gold and silk. Not gold alone. Pepper. That tells you exactly where Piper nigrum sat in the ancient world's monetary hierarchy. The reason it held that kind of weight was geography. It grew on the Malabar coast of India, and getting it to Europe meant crossing Arab traders, Persian merchants, and Alexandrian brokers, each taking a cut. Wealthy Romans stored peppercorns in locked rooms. Medieval rents got paid partly in peppercorns. Piperine, the active compound, also works as a mild preservative, and medieval physicians prescribed it for fever and digestion, so demand never came from just one direction. Portugal's route around Africa, Spain's push west, the Dutch East India Company's spice monopolies. All of it traces back to peppercorns being worth enough that a cheaper route to them could fund a nation. Number 5. Salt, derived from salt plants/trade with plant products. The word salary comes from the Latin salarium, which tied back to Roman soldiers and their access to salt. Whether they got paid in salt directly or just got an allowance to buy it, historians still debate. But the word stuck because it captured something real. Salt isn't a plant, but inland communities traded grain, flax, and other crops specifically to get it, so it sat right at the center of plant-based economies. Without salt, you couldn't preserve meat through winter, couldn't cure hides, couldn't process certain foods. No substitute existed. One of Rome's oldest roads, the Via Salaria, translates directly as Salt Road. Infrastructure that old doesn't get built for a luxury item. Number 6. Coconut. In parts of the Pacific and South Asia, a productive coconut grove could be inherited, mortgaged, and used to settle debts. That's not a food source. That's a bank. Cocos nucifera produces year-round, not in a single annual harvest, so a grove paid out continuously rather than all at once. Think of the difference between getting your wages once a year versus every month. One bad season couldn't wipe your entire monetary supply. Dried coconut meat, called copra, traded as a standardized unit because merchants knew exactly what processing yield to expect from a given weight. British, Dutch, and German colonial administrations in the Pacific eventually accepted copra as tax payment, formalizing what local communities had practiced for generations. Number 7. Betel nut. Across a belt of territory stretching from India through Southeast Asia to Papua New Guinea, betel nut changed hands at every social transaction that mattered. Births, marriages, funerals, business deals. You didn't just hand someone a nut, though. The Areca catechu palm produces the nut, but it's always prepared with a betel leaf from Piper betel and a small amount of slaked lime. And that preparation ritual was the whole point. Accepting it sealed the agreement. No external enforcement needed. The arecoline in the nut produces real physiological effects. Alertness, mild euphoria, reduced fatigue, which meant demand came from genuine utility in agricultural communities working hard in tropical heat. Modern currencies work because of shared social agreement around their worth. Betel nut built that agreement directly into the physical act of every transaction. Number 8. Cola nut. Before Coca-Cola put cola nut extract in a bottle, the nut itself ran a currency system across West and Central Africa that needed no coins, no paper, and no central authority to back it up. Cola nitida and cola acuminata both contain caffeine and theobromine, the same compound in cacao, and that combination produces a sustained stimulant effect without a sharp crash. Sharing cola opened every serious negotiation. Eating it alone without offering it first was a known social violation, so the nut carried both a pharmacological and a contractual function simultaneously. Merchants who controlled productive groves held a monetary asset that was scarce, perishable enough to require specialist handling, and in constant demand across trans-Saharan trade routes. Number 9. Rice. Japan's feudal economy didn't run on gold or silver. It ran on rice, and the unit that measured wealth was the koku, defined as the amount of rice needed to feed one person for a year. Samurai got paid in koku. Taxes came in as koku. That's not an agricultural metaphor. That's the actual monetary system. Oryza sativa works as currency because the grain standardizes itself. Fill a certified container with a given variety and you get a consistent weight every time, no negotiation needed. Traders at the Dojima Rice Exchange in Osaka in the early 1700s wrote contracts for rice that didn't exist yet, hedging harvest risk. Futures trading wasn't invented in Chicago. Number 10. Barley. The oldest written economic records we have aren't tracking gold. They're tracking barley. Wages paid in barley, debts settled in barley, loans issued in barley with barley interest. The Code of Hammurabi sets specific exchange rates between silver and barley, which tells you silver was the alternative, not the standard. Hordeum vulgar grows in poor soils where wheat won't bother. It matures faster, stores better because it harvests drier, and you can eat it, brew it, or feed it to animals. That optionality is something modern financial instruments spend serious effort trying to copy. The Temple Granary held reserves, issued credit, and set exchange rates. That's a central bank built from grain, and it worked for thousands of years. Every plant on this list solved the same problem. How do you store and move value when you can't trust a piece of paper? The answer was always biology. Uniform grain size, controlled supply, real demand, properties you could verify yourself without asking anyone to vouch for it. That's not primitive. That's zero counterparty risk, and modern finance still wrestles with that problem daily.